Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
General Scary Experiences thread. It can be supernatural or not. Innawood stories are always great. B17. Walking down a dirt road with a friend at night. Dark as shit, not really many stars out, no moon, either. Flipping a coin to decide when to turn. Think we see things running through the woods, think it's a deer or our eyes playing tricks on us. End up going straight all the way to a point where the road goes straight or left. Straight isn't an option because there is nothing there and no short way back to friend's house. See something cross the road from the left to right off in the direction the road turns left. We decide to head back because it's spoopy. Almost back to my friend's house when I hear a heavy padded footstep behind me. Sounded like a really large dog. Turn around and see what looks like the rake on all fours. Yell and get my friend to look back and start running. He thinks the fucker stood up on its hind legs. Nope the fuck out of there as hard as we can. Get back inside of his house, try to figure out what the fuck we just saw. Come up with nothing and agree to tell ourselves it was a bear. Find out a month later that it was a starving greyhound.
Some backstory. One of my best friends as a kid, and still friends today, had a house on an Indian burial ground. No fucking joke. They had occurrences all the time, and spending the night was always spooky. His dad went artifact hunting a lot and actually found one of the graves of a high-ranking member, but I digress. Be 12 years old. Spending summer day at a friend's house. We'll call him Court. Walking around his property and exploring the woods. Dense as fuck and really tropical. Walking trails for a couple of hours talking about bullshit and the Indian stuff. Hear a loud ass thump. Both stop. Hear it again. Court looks downright spooked. I'm pretty chill, think it's construction.
Let's go back.
He starts running. Chase him, confused as fuck. Thumps getting louder and more frequent. One thump was so loud I felt it in my chest. Thump stop. Complete silence. No birds, no bugs, silence. I hear a scream that sounds like a young girl. Start running. See Court hiding in a natural trench. We lay down for a few minutes. Hear a huge, vibrating noise. Like a loud, deep mosquito. It gets closer. Closer, and closer. Sounds almost over us. The sound gets quieter and stop. We run back to his house and act like it didn't happen. That night loud thumping and buzzing outside. Didn't sleep at all.
This is something that happened 3 days ago. Be riding in car with my sister and her boyfriend on the highway. Around 45-minute drive, bored as fuck. Stare out the window. We pass by a long railroad track. Catch a glimpse of someone walking. Couldn't see their face, only legs. They were heading towards the long strip of grass by the tracks. As our car inches up and comes to a stop at a red light, I was able to get better view of that person. Except I didn't because they were gone. Nowhere to hide unless they panicked their way ahead the 60 miles per hour speed limit. Whatever, I must be seeing things. We drive a few feet ahead. Something else catches my eye. I see a metal cross by the tracks, surrounded by flowers. Wasn't as much scary as it was interesting. Hope that person rests in peace, whether or not my eyes played tricks on me.
Okay, I've been meaning to tell X this for a while but I just haven't been bothered. And yes, I'm typing as I go, so fuck you, be patient. About a month ago my family, and their partners, mine included, went on a houseboat trip. We live in South Australia so we thought a trip up the Murray River would be nice. Not much happened for the first 2 nights. I found some nests at shelters in the bush, drank, and had a good time. The 3rd day and night is when shit got real. We had crossed over into Victoria and into some reservation or whatever. My mum, 2 sisters, girlfriend, and I were on the top deck of the boat talking about random shit and drinking. After a while the others decided to head inside. I thought I may as well grab another beer while I was up there. As I was about to head downstairs, I heard what sounded like a young girl scream from across the other side of the river. It spooked me, but I just thought it might have been a fox or something. After a few minutes inside, my girlfriend decided it'd be a good idea to go for a walk, seeing as we were fairly secluded from society and it was nice and peaceful. We ended up going about 1 kilometer inland. We stopped when we came across a fox's den. What I found weird was a perfectly good den had been abandoned by its previous owners. Nevertheless, we pressed on. We made it to a dried up creek. Which is when we smelt a disgusting stench of what I assumed was dead rabbit, besides there being a lack of rabbit diggings. It was putrid, but growing up on a farm, it was sort of familiar. Anyway, I asked my GF if she smelled it too, and she said she could. However, within moments of saying that, the smell disappeared. I got a little unnerved and decided we should head back, in case there were ferals nearby or something. As we started heading back to the river, the smell returned, accompanied by the sound of what sounded like padded feet. I made sure my GF was with me the whole time. I told her where to go. She doesn't have a very good sense of direction, and we ended up coming out a few hundred meters away from the houseboat. Also, we came across more of those nests. However, they looked like they had been torn apart by an angry kangaroo or emu. We got back to the boat a little spooked, but nothing too serious. Fast forward to that night, we were in bed and cuddling. It was about 3 a.m.ish when I started hearing what sounded like a really fucked up dog. Almost like one that was dying. It was barking, which was some sort of relief, until I heard another and another. They were all in different locations, mind you. And they were all getting closer. I thought maybe dingoes, maybe stray dogs. Then I heard one that was real close to the boat. However, it was coming from where my girlfriend and I came back from our walk, where we broke out of the scrub. Then the barks or calls or whatever changed to a more frantic sound. The other ones started getting closer. They'd call out every few seconds, I assumed to get a reading on where the others were. I started getting 3 spooked 5 me, and so was my girlfriend. A few minutes later the barking just stopped, but the last call was really close. Then something big and heavy climbed onto the houseboat. I felt the side lower into the water, if you know what I mean. Then slow and soft footsteps circled the outside decking of the boat, and something climbed the stairs and walked on the top deck. By this time I had messaged my parents, who were in the next room, but fucked if I was making any noise. At around 5-5:30 all the noises had gone, and whatever was on the boat had left. But it didn't end there. The next day we started heading back down the river to the place where we started. We ended up stopping to do some fishing and stayed the night where we first stayed. That evening, however, there was howling coming from upriver, where we had recently been. Only a tiny bit left. My brother-in-laws decided to howl back. They were drunk, and whatever sort of dog it was responded to. Again, when we were in bed at around 12 a.m., I heard a commotion in the hallway and got up to see. My sister and dad had gotten up and were searching the boat cause my sister had heard footsteps around her room outside part, but my parents thought it was just her imagination.
B18. Friends and I on our way to go camping in a woods. Never been at this certain spot. Load up car and get going. I decide to get some sleep on the way. Wake up and we're there. Set up tents, etc. Fast forward to nightfall. Decide to tell scary stories around the campfire. One of my friends tells us about a local legend of some deer skull creature. It has a human male torso and arms, with a deer skull for a head and a snake tail below its waist. Don't remember the exact story, something about a girl named Lofty. We decide to call it a night and sleep. Can't sleep for some reason. Get out of the tent to pee. See the fucking deer creature standing right where our fire was. It's back to me. Piss myself. I suddenly wake up, back in the car. I dreamed the entire fucking thing. Setting up the tents, the scary stories, the creature. It was all just a dream. Weirded the fuck out. Get to the campsite. It's the same site from my dream. I freaked out and asked my friend, the one who told the story, if he knew about the legend, and he didn't know what I was talking about. The rest of the trip went fine, nothing abnormal.
Here's one that still scares my friend today. But then, he is easily scared. 16. Hanging out with friend, mid-November, dark by 6 p.m. We all split up to head home, ask best mate if he wants to stay at my house. He agrees. We decide to stop at his house first to pick up games and a controller. Walking through the park to get to his house. Trees surround park. Head for a piss against a tree. Hear a groaning not far from the tree. Guy lying on all fours under a small piece of tarpaulin. Skin's gray, looks like blue cheese, veins very visible. Looks like blood around him. Groaning and getting up slowly. Head over to my friend. You see that? Friend nopes the fuck out and bolts. I chase after him. Catch up to him at his door. Hang around in his house for a few minutes. Get our stuff and leave. Guys disappeared. Quickly walk up the road to my house. That was 6 years ago and we still talk about it. Another one, but this is more of an amazing coincidence. Garage next to my old primary school. Used to have a big guard dog. Between school and garage is a footpath and a small wooded area. Friend and I heading to my house one night. Point to a wooded area. They say a beast lives in there. Possibly a werewolf. Friend creeps out, shut up anonymous. They say it feasts on men. It may be watching us right now. You can hear its howls echo through the night. Guard dog howls. Friend nopes the fuck out and runs. I chase after him laughing and scream, "They're coming to get you, Barbara." Eventually, catch up with him.
One time I had a friend who was easily scared. B16. Friday 13th. Hanging at John's place, an apartment on a very calm part of town. Only 3 families lived there. His mother was out of town. Explains to John that me and cousins have a tradition to watch spooky movies on Friday 13th. John is okay with it and so we go out to get some movies. John wants to watch some shitty zombie movie. No John, why John? John explains he gets spooked too easily. I'm okay with that, but if I will have to watch some zombie shit then he will have to let me pick one I want. Pick The Orphanage. Back into John's place. Watched Orphanage first. Movie finishes. I joke saying we should play that game they play on the movie and see what happens. John screams, "Are you kidding?" John starts the zombie one. Knocking noise starts. I think John didn't hear it, so ignore. Notice John getting nervous. Dude, stop. This isn't funny, okay? I deny and say it's the neighbor upstairs. Neighbors upstairs are also out of town. Noise stops. 5 minutes later starts again. Anon. Stop it now. Knocking gets louder and louder then stops. 30 minutes after, the doorbell rings. John it's freaking out. It was something like 10 p.m. Tells John to chill and as the good friend I am, I check the door. No one there. Oh shit. JPG. Tell John it was the guy from downstairs. He would freak out even more if I told him the truth. Guy from downstairs. Couldn't come up with a good story, so just tell him the truth. John says that it was a bad idea watching that movie. It invited bad spirits into his home and now he would be forever hunted, etc. Don't know what to say, so just go back to the movie. We finished the zombie movie and go play games. The knocking came back 2 or 3 times. trying to come up with some explanation to John, otherwise he wouldn't let me sleep. All I know is that he never watched ghost movies ever again, and nothing actually scary actually happened that night.
Alright. X, I've wanted to tell to you guys for some time now, but I never really got around to doing it. This is something that happened to me and my best friend a couple of years ago. You can believe it or not, I really don't give a flying fuck. But, as cliched as this sounds, this shit still haunts me to this fucking day. I'm going to Greentext, it's a bit of a long one, so I don't know if it's going to fit in one post. Be me. 15 years old. It's the tail end of summer, right before school starts back up. I'll tell you a little bit about where I'm from first. August in the Maritimes has a certain kind of drier heat when compared to the damp mugginess of June and July, at least until hurricane season starts up. I was hanging out with my best amigo in the whole world. The AC was busted or something like that, and the house was getting so hot we couldn't even retreat to the cold sanctuary of her basement. So instead we decided to cool off outside. 15-year-old logic. Now, we live in a small town in rural Canada of all places, so there's not really that much to do outside except walk around town, get high, or walk around town while high. Unfortunately for me, my best friend was waiting to turn 18 before they smoked pot, leaving us to walk around my small town in a boring, sober state. Because it's such a small town, we know all the streets, paths, train tracks and parks. My story, if that's what I'm going to call it, takes place in one of the parks. Here's some history for you guys. If you live in Canada, you've certainly heard of Sobeys. No, this isn't a Sobeys conspiracy theory, even though I'm sure they illegally bought that limey Jamie Oliver, and are now making him their little bitch or something. They first started up in my town in Nova Scotia a long-ass time ago, so they've built a lot of parks and donate small amounts of money every year to keep them running. One of the parks we went to occasionally was the Sobeys soccer complex, made up of 2 little baseball diamonds, an indoor rink on top of a hill, an abandoned little skate park, a woods trail, a smaller soccer field and a larger soccer field. It sounds like a lot, but if you were to take a look at the place, all you would see is 2 old run-down baseball diamonds, 2 big fields each with its own set of rusty goalposts, a concrete safety hazard sinking into a marshy area and some big building on a hill with its own separate road and parking lot. The baseball season was finished and the soccer hadn't begun yet, so other than a couple jogging on the trail and 2 or 3 middle schoolers at the death trap of a skate park, we had the entire place to ourselves. We spent the afternoon distracting ourselves from the heat and just messing around, clinging to the chain link fence on the baseball diamonds, climbing the creaky bleachers and even running up the skate ramps. It was immature and juvenile fun, but fun nonetheless. I remember the sun beginning to set, when we were lying on the front steps of what I think was a storage building of sorts for the netting on the goalposts and the paint that goes on the field. Pick related, it's the back of the big building. Anyways, we were carrying on and generally goofing around, badly singing the song, Don't Stop Believing, with funny voices, making references to movies we thought were funny at the time, and just generally talking about teenage shit like grades, ways to survive hypothetical zombie apocalypse scenarios, and cute boys, girls. The sun was almost fully set, leaving that one brilliant stripe of orange across the horizon. Everyone else had already gone, but before we left we were going to do one last loop around the trail. We were walking along and making the same chit-chat as before, but this time we were discussing her childhood friend Kyle, who visited the previous week from BC. She mentioned that they were at the parking lot up on the hill by the rink, walking Ruby, her big black husky, and they thought they could see an animal. At first I didn't really make that big a deal about it. Like I said, it's somewhat rural here. Animals, even big black bears, show up in town all the time. I told her that it was probably something like a coyote, or a stray dog, and she just went along with it and we continued on our trail. Before we left I did notice something. There's still usually sounds this time of the evening. a bird chirping here or there as they settled down for the night, or a particularly loud car on one of the roads close to the park. But it was just quiet, like nothing, not even the hum of the crickets that were constantly chirping in the evenings. Pick also related, it says Valley Wood, which is technically right, since if you keep going it'll take you up to the heights, where a bunch of rich assholes live, but it's the trail by the fields. So the sun had finally set, when we were halfway around the trail. That's where we were when we first started hearing the first noises since we walked on the trail. These sounds were far away. I'm talking like so far away you could barely hear them, but continuously getting louder. This was freaking us right out. I mean, it's dark outside. And we're surrounded by trees on this trail and we hear these animal sounds. Shit is scary, so we fucking power walk back and end up near the big building, now empty. And this is right beside one of the fields, and this is where we first started seeing shit. And by shit I mean this reflective white thing or face, or I don't even know, but it was reflective and shiny like an animal's eyes when you take a picture of it. And I'm ranting like crazy right now, but I want to describe this to you guys. It was oval and reflective, and whatever it was attached to was low to the ground, and from what I could see, staring right at us. Another thing about this thing, was that unless at least one of us was looking at it, it would move away. Even if you only looked away for a second, or even just blinked, gone. Over a few featuring, or sometimes it looked like 20 feet. Eventually, after 3 or 4 minutes, we're getting scared and it disappears, so at this point we just took off, back to the soccer fields where we chill out by the bleachers. So now we spend the next half an hour just joking around and laughing, saying it was probably just a plastic bag, calling each other pussies, and making accusations of the other being scared, even though we were both obviously a little shaken up. Things go back to normal, and we're chilling on the bleachers, when Jane starts to notice a thin and low fog rolling. Fog isn't uncommon in the evenings. We're right near the coastline and the hot air mixing with the nighttime cool air does shit. Regardless, this was some too spooky shit. We look back into the soccer field, and sure enough, amongst the mist is our friend from earlier, hunched up black mass, low to the ground, and shiny face, illuminated by, I don't fucking know. Back to the same routine, moving at the speed of I don't fucking know, but always looking, always staring right at us. I'm getting pissed off, and I think it might be some asshole kids fucking with us, or a piece of reflective garbage, and I'm feeling stupid for getting scared, so I want to move closer and get a better look at it. I'm moving forward looking at it, and Jane is getting mad at me, telling me to stop fucking around because she's scared and I'm acting like an idiot. But I need to get a better look. I'm walking closer and closer. Now actually almost to the middle of the biggest soccer field, Jane behind me, warningly saying my name, and pleading with me to stop and go back home. I blink and it's moved to the far edge of the field by the goalposts. I'm an impulsive little shit, so I start cupping my hands around my mouth and yelling at it. I turn around to look at Jane, and by the look on her face I know I really shouldn't have done that, because I turn back around and squint my eyes trying to see, but it never left this time. It just stood up, as tall, if not taller than the net. I'm talking like 8 feet plus here. All the fucking noises from before that I mentioned before, the yips I confused for coyotes were back, and this fucking massive thing was just standing back there staring at us. I think I finally froze up. All the macho bravado wiped away by the overwhelming feeling of terror, because the next thing I know Jane must have grabbed me and ran, because the next thing I know I was running to the nearest houses, the fastest I've ever ran in my entire life. Like seriously, you will never ever again see a little fat girl run as fast as I did that night. We got to the safety of the street, and went back to her place. This was all 2 years ago. I'm still best friends with Jane, although we haven't been back there since that night. But, I'm leaving to move to the city this year, and we thought we were going to go back there, before September. It's almost then, and I'm terrified to go back. It never hurt us, and it kept its distance, but the fear I felt that night went beyond terror. It was this horrible, gut feeling, and it was just so bad, I never want to ever feel that ever again. This wasn't some stupid Slender Man or Goat Man roleplay bullshit. I don't fucking know what it was, but all I can say is as much as I wish it were a weird mutual hallucination, it fucking happened. I just really wanted to get this off my chest and tell someone, and if any of you actually did read this, thanks. And wish me luck for 2 weeks from now when I go back to that place.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.